You are listening to the Common Ground podcast, where social justice topics are discussed so that mutual solutions can be considered. This program was created by me, Ziggy Kozicki. You can join these conversations by following Common Ground podcast on Facebook. This program was created through the facilities of the MCTV network, a service of the City of Midland. Charter, DirecTV, MCTV, and the City of Midland are not responsible for the content of this program. The views presented do not necessarily represent those of Charter, DirecTV, the City, or MCTV. If you would like to learn about creating community podcasts like this one, contact MCTV at 989-837-3474. Thank you. Hey, welcome to U.S. Common Ground. Today's program is about mental health and mental illness. I have as a guest today Anthony Carolyn, or Tony as I call him, who is a mental health expert.
Hey, remember to talk to the camera.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. All right, 5, 4, 3.
Welcome to U.S. Common Ground. I am Ziggy Kozicki. Today's program is about mental health and mental illness. My guest today is Tony Carolyn, Anthony Carolyn, if you're looking for him in the want ads. Anyways, Tony is a social worker, trained at the University of Michigan, Big M, and has worked in mental health services for a number of years. Has a lot of insights into mental health, mental illness. He's coming to us from Traverse City, Michigan, the Cherryland capital of the world. And Tony, welcome aboard.
Hey, thanks for having me, Zig.
Yeah, Tony and I go way, way back. We're All Saints Cougars, and we actually played football together. So it was a long time ago.
Well, yeah, we both practiced mental health work and professionally in Bay City for a while together and helped each other out. So I'm glad to be doing this with you.
Yeah, I should mention that I'm still a practicing psychologist. Have been involved in mental health services for about 50 years. That's right, 50. So, you know, we just get older. We keep running, get some spare parts. But I want to talk with Tony today about a number of things, because I think it's important for all of us to kind of demystify the whole issue of mental health. And we'll talk a little bit about those things. But I wanted to bring up something to begin with, in that Common Ground is a podcast where we look for greater understanding to improve the lives of people. So we're not necessarily trying to pick at negative kinds of things, but we're really trying to look at the positive possibilities. And if you want to make comments about this, we do have a Facebook site. It's facebook.com/US Common Ground. And this program, as well as other programs, are there, and you can comment in the appropriate program category if you want. But US Common Ground is a opportunity for people to share their experiences, to challenge the thinking of people who are listening in. And today we're going to be talking about mental health, which is a big challenge and probably very much misunderstood. So Tony, let me start by asking you, in your experiences about promoting mental health, is that something that you see people really conscious of?
I think so. I think it's getting more. I think people are becoming more and more conscious of it. I like your dichotomy here between mental health and mental illness, because there's, you know, it's different, and you know, and I think people maybe understand mental health better than they do mental illness. So.
Yeah, and I think if we think about mental health, then we know if we're not doing those things, mental illness is possible. And it's real simple what goes into mental health. And I think sometimes people think it's much more complicated. But I got a few things here. It's basically connecting with others. That's what we're doing right now. Staying physically active, eating well, uh, prioritizing sleep, uh, managing stress, uh, and being mindful of what a person is
Mhm,
thinking and doing,
mhm.
as well as having some hobbies, uh, and also practicing gratitude. And with that, trying to limit the negative inputs in a person's life. Exercise, social media is something to really avoid. Too much social media has been shown to possibly have negative impacts on mental health. And then seeking professional help if you're dealing with something that you really can't figure out yourself. And then, more importantly, just considering the fact that all of us are fragile, and from time to time we're going to go crazy, and then and then we find our way back. So, but yeah, it is a dichotomy, and I think sometimes people only focus on maybe one end of it, which is the mental illness, and tend to really get preoccupied with it like it's some foreign beast or some. In the old days, it used to be they believed that people were possessed, and so you had to beat the hell out of them, or you know, give them prayer or something, and that eventually they would find Jesus or something, and then they would be mentally well, not realizing that you know mental illness also has a biological component, and we've learned that through research over time. Um, so you were raised in an environment that promoted your mental health. What do you remember that helped you to be resilient?
Well, I had a very supportive family. I mean, that was graced with that. Parents, siblings, extended family, school. You know, so
For a
I
while
just
there.
got I just got a spam over my phone. Maybe it cut out when
Oh, yeah, when that
when
comes in, it blocks things, so,
yeah.
yeah. Well, interesting that you mentioned spam over your phone. We get bombarded with things now. I get all these phone calls, people wanting me to get insurance or buy something, and I get messages on my phone, and everywhere I go, it seems as if I'm being bombarded. I think sometimes we don't realize that that's very disruptive. And possibly, maybe one of the things that we need to do is filter those things out. Although I have a watch, and I just got this thing, and it's a very simple watch, but there's an alarm on it, and it goes off at midnight. Now I don't know why it's set at midnight. So last night this thing goes off at midnight, and my
What do
wife
you
said your
what do you
alarm's going off,
what are you
and
doing up at midnight?
well, I'm going to bed, I guess, but I think the alarm is set to tell me to go to sleep, but I couldn't figure out how to turn it off, and it's such that every 5 minutes it goes off again to remind me, and so I'm in the dark fumbling with this thing, thinking I'm trying to get some sleep here. Will you leave me alone? And I'm thinking this is a very good example of how technology is interrupting with my daily life. And I'm not sure if I really got this thing to stop. I kept hitting a lot of buttons in the dark, and eventually it did stop. My wife was pretty happy that she could go back to sleep. But, that's a good example of just one thing that just interrupts, jumps into our lives, causes us to feel different, and possibly even, and I know I had a little harder time falling asleep because of it.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I think technology is a stressor. I mean, it's change, and when you have change, you have stress. I think at the end of my uh, professional life, I retired from community mental health, and when I started, people were bringing me the files, and I was dictating. Uh, when I retired, I was typing for about 5 out of 8 hours. So
Yeah. 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 It's interesting that you're right. A lot of work is made by technology too. Even though we have apparently AI going to join us and make us smarter and make us able to do more. But I assume that what's going to happen is we're going to have to patrol AI, and we're going to spend a lot of time proofreading what AI said, we said, and correcting it.
Yeah.
Well, as you have moved on in your life, and you live in a beautiful area, Traverse City, which is
Hmm.
God's country in Michigan. If you don't know anything about Michigan, we're surrounded by the Great Lakes. It's a just a wonderful state, incredible resources. It's not too crowded, but Traverse City has become very popular, and many people have moved there. And I'm just curious, Tony, you've lived there how many years?
Let's see. Uh, 35, 30.
35.
Yeah.
So over that 35 years living just in your community, what kinds of things have changed that you think have made your life more stressful?
Well, let's see. Made my life more stressful. Well, I can talk about the economy and the demographics of Traverse City and the change. Um, because of its popularity, the economy's small, and it's difficult to earn a living here if you don't have a lot of supports and some legacy, resources. So there's a it's a tough row for many people in this county and in the city. We have a difficult homeless problem that continues and is very resistant to solution. Um, the If it's dominated by the service, the community visitor service or tourist industry, and the people that work in that have a very hard time uh, making ends meet, much rather much to pay for mental improvement or mental health issues. It's that's difficult. We have our issues here. It's not all paradise, but
Yeah,
not it's good, and there's a
yeah.
lot of good people here, but that's a change. And
You have many luminaries, people who are very successful in entertainment or politics, who have moved there, industry people who've retired. So there is maybe a dichotomy in terms of income and lifestyle and so forth. Um, how does that work out for most people?
well, when I first moved here, people said to me, and I think it's true today, they said if you have a job that you like and meets your income needs, you'll love it here. If you don't have a job you like and it doesn't meet your income needs, it's not going to be fun. And I think that's was true 37 years ago, and it's even more true today.
Yeah. So maybe this is something that we don't recognize, but and we probably should, is that in every community, some people have it better than others,
Hmm.
and their mental health may be better because of that. Income certainly plays a big role in providing, those other elements that help a person to succeed. And I suppose if you have more income, the stress level, at least from economic pressures, decreases, although it could increase in other areas, particularly if there's expectations that go with it.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is that for many people, um, it's a tough going. And even though when I visit Traverse City, or if anybody ever visits Traverse City, you'll find it a delightful place, small town America with a lot of extra things added to it, and it's on a beautiful location. And you know, and I remember my friends who moved there always said, half your pay is the view of Grand Traverse Bay or whatever, Lake Michigan. Um,
Well, we haven't really got yet to, maybe I'm jumping here to, the mental health services for the behavioral health services. But through my career here, I think it was diminished. It was definitely diminished. The frequency of contact, the duration of contact, the access or the admission price and needs base was raised high. And but we have a lot of activists here, and it's probably be better now than it's swinging better, I think. And it when we went to well, when Michigan went to the Medicaid model, it really reduced the community health or the services to people who need non-acute or non-dangerous mental health services. It really reduced it to them.
Well, I remember going up to Traverse City, working for community mental health out of Bay County. And my role was to interview people who were then in the state's largest mental health institution, the Traverse City Hospital there, which is located, is still there now, but has been converted into a domicile for people who want to live in condominium kind of arrangements and shops, and this very trendy place, restaurants and all that. But I remember going there and pulling my car in and getting out, and there would be people's fingers sticking through an iron uh, grated fence on a porch, and people sticking their faces up against it saying, "Are you here to get me? Are you here to get me?" And having to go in there and interview people to see whether we were able to return them back to their community. And it was during just during that Engler era, just before, when they were trying to decommission all the state hospitals. And our mandate was to bring people back to the community and re-socialize them so they could live in their community that they came from. And I was talking to people that had been living up there for 35 years in the institution. And at that time, it was, a big deal trying to get somebody to leave there. Many people didn't want to leave there because that was their home. They felt comfortable there. And the idea of coming back to their community and trying to establish a lifestyle again was scary as hell to them.
Right.
But and that was a big employer for Traverse City at the time.
Yes. Well, I moved here just as it was closing. And what I experienced is the people of the population of Traverse City was very accommodating to the people being served at the hospital, and they were proud of it. And there's with disease, there's always things that are untoward or ugly, but I was impressed. It was perceived by most people I talked to, both patients and community members, as positive. It was a positive thing. They were saying, go.
Yeah, it's interesting. The milieu extended outside of the hospital, and you would see people walking around the hospital and into the community. And you wouldn't be surprised if, when you had breakfast at one of the local diners, there was a schizophrenic sitting next to you, also getting a cup of coffee or something, and the waitress knowing the person by name, and the person obviously, having some issues, ideas of reference and delusional thinking and all that, but functioning, and
Right.
People accepted the person. There wasn't a big deal. People weren't, aghast by it and thinking, "Oh my God, somebody ought to get that person out of here. He's mentally ill," And I think you're right. It was accommodating, almost ideal in the sense of mentally ill people being accepted in the community without hesitation and just given a chance to be themselves without necessarily being demonized or put into some category that was negative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if that's an easy thing now. And this gets to me with this idea of mental health too, because I wanted to open this discussion with that. From time to time, everybody's going to have a problem and probably be unhealthy mentally for
Right.
reason or another. Could be they lost their job, they're going through a divorce, they're financially strapped, their kids are acting up. Maybe there's things going in the community they don't like. It could be national things that a lot of people are stressed with. And so, mental health can vary. It can be up, it can be down. It changes over time. And when we think about mental health, a lot of it depends on finding some common ground where we can all kind of benefit from the activities that are going on in our community or our family or even in our own head. Um, and the problem with that is that you have to admit that you're not feeling healthy mentally. And many people don't want to do that. And they put on a facade because they want to protect themselves from criticism. And so they don't really get a chance to work on their mental health because it's something that you don't talk about, you don't bring it up. Um, we've kind of defined uh, this spectrum, which runs from having the greatest life that anybody could ever have to, being in an institution. And we tend to want to make people believe that if you have any kind of mental health issues, or if your mental health is changing, that that's something that you shouldn't talk about, or don't share that because people might take it the wrong way.
Yeah, I think you're hitting on two points that really impede the progress of services and understanding. The former the person you talked about that's experiencing an environmental stressor, of a death, the loss of a job, addiction, and can do the things that you talked about in the opening of this program to have improved mental health. They can have gratitude, they can eat better, they can seek some counseling. Well, on the other spectrum is the people with the biological brain disorders. I think that phrase probably, it's a biological brain disorder, and reading self-help books and eating better will be good for them, but it's really not going to speak to the illness.
Yeah.
And to combine that with that population, one of the hallmarks of the symptoms is the denial of the need, the denial that it exists. And trying to understand those two different spectrums and have programming and services for both is, I guess, the challenge.
Yeah. I mean, we go through so many changes in life. When we're younger, we're dealing with a lot of anxiety because there's a lot of things we don't know. We're learning. It's a process, and there are many things that are unspoken, and a person has to learn through experience. And as we get older, the other extreme is decline, and the whole idea of facing death, which is an unknown. And we have all kinds of explanations as to what happens after you die, but really nobody knows. It's an unknown. It's a black hole, and people try to give us the idea that St. Peter's going to be there waiting for us or whatever, and that kind of adds a little sugar to the drink that we're taking, the Kool-Aid. But in reality, a lot of life is uncertain, and and our mental health is impacted by uncertainty. And I think that all too often we minimize the fact that not everybody has a great day or a great life, and that's not on them. It's just the way life is. I mean, it's random sometimes that some people are successful and some people aren't. Uh, I heard something yesterday that made a lot of sense. They said success is mostly good luck and motivation.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck and motivation. So if you're lucky enough to be someplace where you can be successful at whatever and you're motivated, it clicks.
Yeah.
But if one of those two things is missing, you're not motivated or the opportunity isn't there, your success at whatever it is going to be diminished, and you can take that into a variety of places. A guy on a football field is running out for a pass. He's wide open and he wants to catch the ball, but the quarterback throws it to somebody else. He doesn't get the ball, no touchdown, Lions lose, you know. He's motivated, but the opportunity wasn't there. So, there's a lot of things in life that are like that. And of course, we can judge people based on whether or not they're successful. But I think we really should be judging people on whether they're sincere and whether they're equipped to be honest with other people about what they're doing, and whether they want to contribute to the well-being of the common ground that everybody shares. If we were all more concerned about our neighbors and about our community, we probably would all benefit from it, because whatever we give, we get back, and it's that kind of relationship that has kind of been broken down by modern lifestyle and schedules and all the stuff that happened. And I think maybe you remember this, but I remember a time when people used to sit on their front porch and talk to people as they walk by. Well, now people don't do as much walking, but now everybody's got a backyard with a fence around it, and you're lucky if you know your neighbor, because there's a fence and there's somebody on the other side, and we know a little bit about them, but we don't know as much as we should. So we've created some circumstances that kind of make it hard for us to find that.
That's true.
We have to actually go out and do it. And I did that this past weekend. I called somebody up that we met at Christmas time at the Ramsdale Theater for their Christmas program there. And I asked her if she wanted to go out with us to have dinner. And she was delighted. We had a great time. And we got to know her. And she just moved here to Michigan from New Mexico recently. So we reached out and, created another link for us, but also, improved the community by creating more of that. And maybe we need more of that kind of reaching out. I think if we were all willing to do more for others because it benefits us, that's the motivation. I think we'd all be better off. I do want to talk, in our next program here about mental illness. And, we know mental health is something that you have to keep working on. So maybe we can talk in the program after this about mental illness and what we need to do better or differently, because I think both you and I recognize that there's a lot of potential for that. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think what you said is pretty true, and like getting involved with others and our government and our cities. Well, that's one of the very positive things about Traverse City is our governmental people. I mean, we have great parks. We have places for people to gather. We have one festival after another, to get out there and meet your neighbors and have some fun.
Okay. I've been talking with Tony Carolyn about mental health. And Tony, thank you for being a part of this podcast. Tony and I are going to have another podcast. Be sure to catch that. And that's going to be about mental illness. And again, if you want to make comments about this, you can go to our Facebook site and make comment. And if you have suggestions for future programs, really look forward to getting your suggestions also. So anyways, this is U.S. Common Ground. I'm Ziggy Kozicki, and thank you for listening in. Thank you for listening to the Common Ground podcast, where social justice topics are discussed so that mutual solutions can be considered. This program was created by me, Ziggy Kozicki. You can join these conversations by following Common Ground podcast on Facebook. This program was created through the facilities of the MCTV Network, a service of the City of Midland. Charter, DirecTV, MCTV, and the City of Midland are not responsible for the content of this program. The views presented do not necessarily represent those of Charter, DirecTV, the City, or MCTV. If you would like to learn about creating community podcasts like this one, contact MCTV at 989-837-3474. Thank you.